Hello everyone and welcome to the 28th video of Chess Eddie. So in this video we're going to be talking about a variation of the Ruy Lopez. So today we're going to be talking about the Mackenzie variation. In the next video we're going to be talking about the Berlin defense variation of the Ruy Lopez. So the Mackenzie variation is more rare than the Berlin defense, but if black decides to play and let white play the Mackenzie variation, black has to be careful because there are many pitfalls which we're going to be watching today. So the first move is e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop e5. This puts pressure on the c6 knight, and now the Berlin defense would be knight to f6, but actually the Mackenzie variation is when black plays to a6. So for now we're just gonna look at the main line of the Mackenzie variation. White plays bishop to a4, keeping that pressure on the knight and backing up away from danger from the a6 pawn. Now black plays knight to f6. Now this is the key move of the Mackenzie variation because d4 is really aggressive and black doesn't really expect it. So e takes d4 here is the move. Castles to have plans like rook e1, or maybe even plan bishop g5 to add more pressure to the two knights. Here bishop to e7, guarding that knight, and then also planning the castle. And now rook e1. So this plans the move e5, or also c3. So b5, d6, and now this is a key move, bishop to d5, moving the bishop to the center, and then also creating that kind of skewer tactic onto skewer, but kind of pin tactic on the knight and rook. Now black is pretty much forced to take on d5. E takes d5, and now black actually plays knight to e5, bringing his knight to the center. And now, instead of taking the knight on e5 here, white decides to take the d4 pawn. White is actually, in my opinion, better here because he has the center more, and he has plans on moving the knight to c6. And he also has that rook on e1, and black still needs the castle. So black has to be really careful here. So that's the main position of the Mackenzie variation. But going back to this line, let's just start from the beginning. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, d4. The first pitfall here is actually b5. If black plays b5 right away instead of taking the pawn first, if b5, then d takes e5. And this basically creates a counterattack for white. So here, knight takes e4 is correct because it is being attacked. If black takes on a4 with the pawn, then white can take with f6, and black's pawn structure won't be great because of the doubled pawns in the a file, and white has more space. Knight takes c4, bishop b3, moving that bishop away from danger. And now knight c5, kind of attacking the bishop on b3, and black's pawn on e5 is kind of in danger here, so now bishop to d5 is the correct move, creating now a pin on the knight and rook on a8. So that's the first pitfall for black on moving the pawn to b5, because it gives white a positional advantage and gives more space and a better pawn structure. So this second one isn't really a pitfall, but rather a different line in the Mackenzie variation. So right here, instead of moving to bishop e7, if black goes to e4, taking the pawn, white has a strong move, rook e1, pinning the knight on e4 because of the king on e8. So this is where black kind of can mess up in this position, unless he knows what he's doing. So d5 is the correct move here, guarding the knight on e4. Knight takes to d4. Keep in mind that the knight on c6 is still pinned by the bishop on a4. And now bishop to d6. Now the plan here for black is to actually create a counterattack on h2. You'll see in just a second here. So knight takes c6, and now bishop takes h2. Now there is actually a key move here, and if white actually takes if white actually takes the bishop on h2, it's actually a draw. So the correct move here is actually king to h1, and this plays for the win, giving white a slight advantage of about 0.5, 0.1, I think. So here, king to h1, and now queen to h4. Now, white also needs to be careful here, but assuming you're playing this line, you should know what you're doing. So now here, rook takes e4, and this is a hard move to find, especially because, you know, the e4 square is really guarded. But at the same time, you can see that white has a huge counterattack with knight on c6, the bishop on a4, and the queen on d1. So with d takes e4, now white has the open file on d1. And the correct move here is actually queen to d8, and then queen takes d8, knight takes d8, king takes d8, king takes h2. So black here actually has 2 rooks in the minor piece, while white has 3 minor pieces and a rook. So white, you can say, is, as I said, about 0.5% ahead as an advantage, especially because of space and development, and because of those 2 bishops. Those can really fight off against the 2 rooks. And then now here, bishop e6, and then, bishop e3. This is just a good position for white. Okay, so now for pitfall number 3. This is the last final pitfall. So we're going to start from the beginning here. a6, bishop a4, knight f6, d4, e takes d4, castle, bishop e7, rook e1. And instead of actually playing b5 here, black might actually play castles. And this actually kind of leads black into a cramped position, because now white can play the move e5. And this leads to knight e8, and you can really see that black doesn't really want to be in this position. c3, as I said before, c3 can be applied in this position. And then d takes c3, knight takes c3, and now white is actually ahead by 0.75 right now in terms of position. Now after castle and e5, instead of playing knight e8, black can actually play knight d5 as well. So knight d5 leads to knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, knight b6, and bishop b3. And now white has the center, with the queen on d4, the rook on e1, and the bishop on b3, aiming on the f7 pawn, and kind of creating an attack for black, against black. Now, one thing to avoid here is actually once black plays to e8 with the knight, you should play c3 now, and don't take the pawn on d4. You should avoid this because knight takes d4, knight takes d4, and then queen takes d4, b5, bishop b3, c5, queen e4, rook b8, and c3. This creates a bit of a complex position for white. I mean, it would be way better to play c3. This is just white is still better here by 0.1, but the position here is pretty equal. Like, black can actually get out of this easily. So this was the Mackenzie variation, and basically consisting of a main line, and a few pitfalls, and then a few other lines in the Mackenzie variation. So I hope you actually learned the basics of the Mackenzie variation, and in the next video we're going to be talking about the Berlin defense, which consists of actually e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, and actually knight f6. We're going to be talking about the Berlin defense in the next video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.